Funny how people unsubscribe from your life without notice. One day they swear forever, the next they're gone. But hey, if you're here, hit subscribe. It's free, unlike loyalty. She had the audacity to declare that she understood my emotions but hoped I would see the larger picture and let the past go, for Mom's sake. After her response, I was more perplexed than ever. I thought having time to dwell on my emotions would help, but it actually made things worse. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years began reaching out, urging me to let go of my anger. They warned me that if I didn't reunite with my family soon, I would regret it. Their words stung, but I realized they only knew a fraction of the truth. They believed I was being unfair, yet they had no idea what I had endured. Their misplaced judgment only fueled my uncertainty and fury. A few days later, my dad sent me another message. It contained sparse details about Mom's condition, but the little he revealed made it clear she wasn't doing well. He insisted that Mom had always loved me, that she wanted us to be a family again. But the message felt off. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an acknowledgement of my pain. Instead, it read like a subtle attempt to manipulate me into feeling guilty. Did he even understand the weight of their actions? For hours, I wrestled with my thoughts, trying to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, a different storm brewed in my personal life. I suspected my wife was planning a divorce, so I took steps to protect my assets. 2 weeks later, she filed, but then backtracked when her plan backfired. Hello everyone, before we start today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thank you. Now let's begin the video. Hello people. I've been skimming through the posts here for a while, believing I'd never have my own tale to tell. But life has a way of shocking you, and I've been carrying this burden for months. I need to let it out. Let me be clear, I've never been the type to jump to conclusions or assume the worst. My wife, let's call her M, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4. Things were solid, or so I thought. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that made me question our relationship. For the most part, we were that couple, completely committed best friends. We laughed at stupid inside jokes, argued for hours over which movie to watch, and had a rhythm that just worked. She planned date nights, and I treated her to her favorite takeout after a long day. It felt effortless, as if we had unlocked the secret to love. That's why what happened next hit me like a ton of bricks. The shift. 6 months ago, things started to change. Subtly at first, little details you'd miss if you weren't paying attention. She began carrying her phone everywhere, even when she was just going to the kitchen or folding clothes. Before, her phone would sit on the coffee table for hours. She never cared if I picked it up. One day I joked, "What are you, running some secret spy ring now?" She chuckled. But something was different. And I was about to find out just how deep the betrayal ran. And then she added a password. That one caught me off guard because she had never used one before. Sure, she had been emailing a lot lately, fine, no big deal. But a few days later, her phone suddenly required a passcode. When I casually asked why, she gave me some vague excuse about security and hackers. I didn't press the issue, not wanting to seem paranoid, but something about it felt off. And it didn't stop there. She started taking calls in private, which was completely out of character. Her phone would ring and she'd grab it quickly, saying, "Oh, let me just take this real quick," before disappearing into the bedroom or stepping onto the porch. If I asked who it was, her response was always the same, "Just a friend from work." Then came the new habit, the phone always face down on the table. I hadn't even realized that was a thing until I reached over to hand her something, and she hastily moved her phone out of the way. It was a blink and you miss it moment, but it stuck with me. The growing distance. It wasn't just the phone. It was her. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly now felt like a struggle. It was like pulling teeth just to get her to engage. When I brought up future plans, "Where should we go for our anniversary?" Or, "Do you think we should start saving for a new car?" she'd barely react. A nod. A dismissive, "Yeah, we'll see." Then she'd change the subject. And then came the moment it all clicked. The coffee date that wasn't. It was a random Wednesday when she casually mentioned she was grabbing coffee with a friend after work. Nothing unusual, she did that from time to time. Coincidentally, I had some errands in the same area, so I thought, why not surprise her? It would be cute. But when I arrived, she wasn't with her friend. She stood outside the cafe pacing. Phone pressed to her ear. I stayed in my car watching. Something about the way she spoke felt serious. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but certain phrases drifted through the air. "It's almost ready. Starting fresh soon." My stomach twisted. This wasn't a conversation about work. This wasn't a friendly chat. It felt bigger. A plan. A secret. The final clue. When she got home, I kept my voice light. Casual. How was coffee? She launched into a detailed story about her friend complaining about her boyfriend. It was oddly specific, so specific that it felt rehearsed. I just stared at her for a second. And then she said something completely out of the blue. I just think we should have everything in one place, you know? Like all our account info, passwords, documents, just in case of an emergency. My chest tightened. This was something we had never talked about before. And given everything else, the secrecy, the distance, the private calls, the timing was too perfect. What kind of emergency? I asked, keeping my voice even. She shrugged. It's just smart, isn't it? What if something happens to one of us? Or if we need to make a big financial decision quickly? On the surface, her reasoning made sense. But the way she said it, the way she delivered it, it felt prepared. As if she'd been waiting for the right moment to bring it up. I nodded, murmured a vague agreement. But inside, alarms blared. Why now? Why was she suddenly so concerned about merging our finances? We had always kept things separate and it had never been an issue before. That night, my mind wouldn't let it go. I replayed her words, the phone calls, the cafe conversation. Was I overthinking? Was this just normal, responsible adult behavior? Or was this the final clue that something was terribly wrong? The pieces were falling into place and I didn't like the picture they painted. Until then, I had done nothing but observe. But the more I noticed, the harder it became to ignore. A few days later, she brought it up again. We were in the kitchen. I was making a sandwich and she was scrolling through her phone. Casually, she asked, "Have you thought more about organizing the bank stuff? Like, do you know where all the account details are?" I lowered the knife and turned to face her. "Okay, what's going on?" I asked, keeping my tone light but firm. "You've been bringing up finances a lot lately. Is there something we need to talk about?" She finally looked up from her phone, surprised that I had pressed the issue. "No, nothing's wrong," she said lightly, forcing a small laugh. "I just think it's important, that's all. You know, for emergencies." "Emergencies like what?" She shrugged, her expression unreadable. "I don't know. Just life stuff. It's not a big deal, I promise. I just think it's something we should stay on top of." Her response was too vague, too carefully worded. I nodded and let it go, for now. But the way she avoided giving a direct answer only made my suspicion grow. This wasn't just some random thought she had. It felt like she was hiding something. But what? A discovery that changed everything. The next day, while she was at work, I decided to dig a little deeper. I logged into our joint account online, expecting everything to be normal. It wasn't. Over the past month, there had been multiple small withdrawals. Tiny amounts. Nothing major, nothing that would immediately raise alarm. But they weren't linked to bills, groceries, or anything else that made sense. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it was clear, she was withdrawing money for something. And I had no idea what. I considered confronting her, but something in my gut told me to wait. If I was wrong, I'd look paranoid. But if I was right? If my instincts weren't just paranoia but a warning, then I had to be smart. It was eating at me, so I reached out to someone I trusted. An old college friend, who also happened to be a lawyer. I explained the situation as carefully as I could, trying not to sound like a conspiracy theorist. He listened patiently, then sighed. "Look," he said. "I'm not saying something is definitely going on, but you're not crazy for wanting to be prepared. If you're worried about protecting your assets, now's the time to do something about it. Better safe than sorry." He walked me through a few simple steps, ways to secure my finances without raising suspicion. I'll admit, taking such a drastic step felt wrong. Like I was preparing for a disaster I couldn't even name. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Because if she was up to something, and I was starting to believe she was, I needed to be ready. A heartbreaking realization. This wasn't just about money. It was about our life. Our wedding day. The late-night conversations about our dreams. The inside jokes that no one else understood. How did we get here? How had our marriage come to this? Me quietly taking steps to protect myself from the person I once trusted completely. It felt like giving up. Like admitting we were no longer us. That evening, while she was out, I sat at my desk, my laptop open. My hand trembled as I pulled up our bank accounts, investments, and property deeds. Every document I studied felt like a betrayal. But a voice in my head wouldn't let it go. This isn't about sabotage. This is about survival. I wasn't trying to hurt her. But if I didn't act now, I might regret it forever. I compiled a list, everything I could move, everything I could secure. ways to do it quietly without raising suspicion. With each step, the weight on my chest grew heavier. I had trusted her for years. Now, I was playing defense against the one person I thought would always have my back. Then I picked up my phone and made another call. To my mother. I kept my voice steady. I need you to hold on to some things for me for a while. It's nothing bad. Just something I need to do, to protect myself. Just in case. She was silent for a long moment. And then, finally, she spoke. I could hear the tension in my mother's voice. Are you okay? She asked, anxiety lacing her words. I lied. Yeah, it's just a precaution. Nothing to worry about. She didn't press, but I could sense the hesitation in her voice. Of course, sweetheart. Whatever you need. I hung up, feeling an odd mix of relief and shame. I hated dragging her into this. But knowing she had my back gave me a small sense of control in a situation that felt like it was slipping through my fingers. By the time Emma got home, I had already begun the process. The majority of my assets, our cash, investments, even the house, were transferred into my mother's name. I left just enough in our joint account to maintain the illusion of normalcy. Emma didn't notice a thing. She walked in, kissed my cheek, and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I forced a smile, pretending everything was fine, but inside I was a wreck. Part of me felt guilty, like I was betraying her trust. But another part of me, the part that was slowly waking up, felt relieved. Because for the first time in weeks, I had the upper hand. A shift in the air. For the next 3 days, I kept things as normal as possible. She was happy. Almost too happy. She was suddenly affectionate again, initiating small talk about work, dinner plans, even future trips. It should have reassured me. It didn't. If she was planning something, she was doing a damn good job hiding it. But one thing stood out. She never mentioned the finances again. Not once. Not even after I had pressed her about it before. At first, I thought maybe I had overreacted, that she had dropped the subject because it wasn't important. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt deliberate. Almost like she was afraid to bring it up. I caught her watching me a few times. Not in an affectionate way, but as if she was analyzing me, trying to gauge my mood. Every time I noticed, she'd immediately look away, back to her phone, the TV, a book. It was subtle. But it was there. She was waiting. For what, I didn't know. But whatever her next move was, I needed to stay ahead of it. The moment of truth. 2 weeks passed. On the surface, everything seemed normal. Almost too normal. She was more loving, more engaged in conversation. She even started discussing unrelated things. Job opportunities, places we should visit, what we should eat for dinner. A part of me started to wonder, had I misread everything? Maybe her strange behavior had just been stress. Maybe I had overreacted. But then, on a random Friday night, she turned off the TV, sat beside me on the couch, and said the words that made my stomach drop. We need to talk. I already knew what she was going to say before she said it. I think we should get a divorce. Her voice was calm. Too calm. She wasn't angry. She wasn't emotional. She was detached. Like she was talking about needing to buy more milk. I stared at her, unable to speak. She kept talking, rattling off her reasons. Needing space. Wanting to find herself. Feeling like she had lost her identity in the marriage. All the standard breakup lines. But then she said something that made my skin crawl. You know, I've made a lot of sacrifices for you over the years, and I don't think you really appreciate them. I deserve more. That last part cut deep. Not just because she wanted out, but because she framed it as if I owed her something. Like this wasn't just about ending a marriage, it was about her claiming what she believed was hers. And that's when the real question hit me. Why now? Then she said something that made everything click. A friend of mine has been helping me see things more clearly. She wouldn't look at me when she said it. My mother, as always, was my rock. She arrived with buckets of paint, a list of ideas, and the determination to help me reclaim my space as my own. At first, I wasn't sure how to move forward. The betrayal still stung, the memories still lingered, but with every stroke of paint and every piece of furniture rearranged, something shifted within me. I was done mourning. Done questioning. Done giving my energy to someone who had long since stopped valuing me. I had spent years building a life with someone who, in the end, had already been planning her escape. An escape she thought would leave me broken and drained while she walked away with everything. But she had miscalculated. I wasn't just someone she could discard like an old sweater. She assumed I would be too shocked, too hurt, too passive to protect myself. She believed she had all the control, but in the end she was the one left with nothing. Jake, the man she thought she would start fresh with, disappeared the moment the truth came out. I had suspected from the start that he was nothing more than an illusion, a fantasy of something new and exciting, someone whispering sweet words of freedom and independence while fueling her greed. And when it became clear she wouldn't be walking away with half of my life, he vanished as if he had never been there at all. The calls continued, but they took on a different tone. At first, they were filled with anger, accusations, and resentment. But then came the pleas. Can we just talk? Please. I made a mistake. You don't have to forgive me, but can we at least find a way to move past this? I miss you. I miss us. I don't even care about the settlement anymore. Just talk to me. But there was nothing left to say. The damage was done. She had already made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. Even her family started to see through the lies. Her brother, who had once angrily taken her side, called me one evening and apologized. I didn't know, man, he said, his voice heavy with regret. I believed her at first. I thought you were trying to hurt her. But after everything, after what she's done, I get it now. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. I told him I held no grudge. At this point, I just wanted to move forward. When the divorce was finalized, she left with nothing but her personal belongings. All the grand plans she had built in her mind, starting over with Jake, living a life funded by my hard work, had crumbled. And me? I walked away with more than just my savings and my home. I walked away with something she would never be able to take from me. For the first time in years, I felt free. No more second-guessing myself. No more questioning my worth. No more bending over backward for someone who saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone. The truth is, love should never be one-sided. A relationship should never leave you feeling like you're the only one trying, the only one giving, the only one sacrificing. Love is about mutual respect, trust, and support, not manipulation and deceit. To anyone reading this, if you've ever found yourself in a situation like mine, know this. You are not weak for loving someone, but you are strong for knowing when to walk away. Sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who betray us in ways we never saw coming. And when that happens, we have a choice. We can let it break us, or we can use it as a lesson to build something stronger. I chose the latter. If this story resonates with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to reclaim your power after betrayal? Let's talk about it. And if you found value in this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories that inspire, empower, and remind us all of our worth. Because in the end, the best revenge is a life well lived.